I'm such an old head. As I've said 1,000 times, I grew up during a very structured time in a very structured environment. We ate when we were supposed to, we watched TV when we could, and we mashed video game controllers at our friends' houses, and then played outside the rest of the time. The late afternoon music shows in my country played different genres of music on different days of the week, and TV pretty much defined the vibe of the day. From the premium Saturday morning cartoons, to the early Sunday morning and afternoon Archie and Spider-Man shows, to the bargain basement after-school shows that were supposed to get you hyped for homework when you got home in the late afternoon, the kids had everything. For the grown-ups, there were the comedies that came earlier in the week, the soaps that played in the middle of the week, and the blockbuster TV that ushered in the weekend. There was always something to look forward to through the week, and the program director studied audience habits to a T. It was such an art. The skill of program directing for TV stations doesn't really get the credit it deserved. Studying audience habits and structuring TV schedules around audience schedules always felt like the station cared about my interests. What they really cared about was money and maximizing ad revenue for the station, but it was still nice to know that they were trying to appease us as an audience as opposed to what's happening today, but that is a dead horse at this point and I'm done beating it. A TV schedule also reinforced structure and discipline into our days because we planned ourselves around the different blocks of TV. Every kid would wake up earlier than they would for school because they had to watch the hottest Saturday morning cartoons. Structure is super important in everyone's life, be you a toddler or a pensioner, and that was great subliminal early life messaging. Everything in moderation, because too much of a thing is never good for you, but we will get into that. I speak in circles sometimes, so I've said this before, but it was so cool how communal TV was back then. Regardless of what your personality or your habits were, we were all funneled into fun shared experiences that you only get now at an Avengers Infinity War or at a global sports event. Human beings are social, so it was always cool to have the shared experiences, even whilst divided by the many walls of our separate homes. I have other conspiracy theories about the inconvenience of a united people to our overlords in a divide and conquer kind of way, but that's a topic for another day. I'm starting to really rack up these conspiracy theories. But individualism is much more beneficial than unity when you're trying to maintain control of people. But this whole video could be a collection of sentimental memories from the 90s and early 2000s, not to mention the entry of Cartoon Network into our lives, and as fun as all that is, I should probably get to the point of the video now.
Yo, hurry up! I'm trying to do it big!
Older Americans often mourn the death of Blockbuster, whose place was eventually taken by Netflix and all the other Plus streaming services that followed, after learning all the wrong lessons from the streaming giant's dominance. You know, it's almost like this streaming thing only worked because there was only one who was able to license content from everyone else and didn't have to make it themselves, essentially operating as one hub for your favorite show reruns. But what do I know? Once Paramount Plus and Disney Plus and all the other math symbols joined the fray, it became very quickly evident that streaming was not a very viable model, and I've not so secretly been waiting for it to fall apart. As the chief hater of subscription models, I've been feeling quite vindicated lately as they either succumb or form Voltron to try and stay alive. You simply cannot make content faster than people can watch it, that's just a fact. Or quality content anyway. The regular TV approach I talked about before allowed everyone to have their entertainment slot in the day. When the stuff you're not interested in came on, you'd just leave and find something else to do. You were not beholden to your couch and remote all day, and you could add other things to your leisure routine, like play video games or play outside, or go to work without worrying that the hottest shows were on when you were at the office or in a meeting. The streets were always a ghost town when the big shows were on. It was always interesting to me how the kids would be on the couch, but when the more grown-up content came on, they would funnel out of the living room and the parents would take control of the remote because the TV schedule said time was up for the kids. I know someone will probably interpret that as ceding control to external parties, which I've always spoken against, but think about your favorite and least favorite restaurants. When you get those massive menus with a million offerings, you are more often than not paralyzed by choice. It even gets frustrating at some point, as opposed to a restaurant with a more focused and curated menu. When you have so much to watch, more often than not you will watch nothing. You want to maximize your limited leisure experience and not waste it on something subpar when there's probably a hidden gem on the same service. So what happens pretty regularly is, you spend your entire time clicking through until it's time to go to bed. Or you start watching stuff while trying to find a reason to click off and look for something else that might be more interesting. Kinda like YouTube. Or sitting in traffic and worrying constantly that you're in the slower lane and you should probably change, but when you change you realize you made a mistake and the other lane starts moving faster. It makes for a very distracting experience because you don't want to feel shortchanged by your choice. Not to mention the effort that you have to put in just to get entertained. Imagine going to a nightclub to catch a vibe and the DJ makes you responsible for his playlist. Every time a song ends, you're supposed to pick the next one. It's exhausting. There isn't even room for a welcome surprise because it's all on you to choose. Democratization is definitely a double-edged sword in this case because, I don't know about you, but when I binge anything, I wind up feeling slightly gross about the whole thing. While it's nice to have the power to get access to the thing you like and control when and how often you see it, which used to mean buying and owning the physical media like a DVD or a tape or a video game today, it becomes frustrating when it cuts across everything you like and don't even know about. The only quality control you have is word of mouth, and it would all be so much easier if a TV station hired someone to do it for you. Which brings me to another thing. The function of program directors at TV stations was to ensure that they meet your needs at a particular time slot, or you would leave and find something else to do. They were not just catering to you as a customer, but they were also controlling traffic and pacing their bank of shows, while allowing the station time to acquire more quality shows. This also allowed shows to become very popular because they maximized value and received the most eyes at specific times of day. A lot of the crap we complain about today would not even be possible back then because shows sunk or swam based on ratings. The priority of streaming, in contrast to network TV, is to flood the trough with as much slop as possible for the piggies to keep on munching. The more content that is on there, the longer you stay plugged into their system. Once you binge through everything, your incentive to renew the service for another month drops, so they have to keep shoveling crap down the food tunnel for your consumption. This also reduced the barrier to entry and opened the door to a lot of people who have no place in the creative industry. It's just not a great environment or pipeline or system to incentivize quality. Adding all that to the fact that there is no rush for the consumer to watch anything. I still haven't watched Reacher, even though it's the kind of show that was made for a 90s kid like me. If this came on in the 90s, it would likely air on Friday at 8 p.m. and it would be the biggest show of the week. Pun intended? No diddy. Binging and access to everything has destroyed the mystique of TV. Even if you don't care about water cooler conversations, what is your incentive to rush and watch anything when it will always be there in its entirety and can be watched whenever? And true to form, more people will watch them whenever, and it leads to pockets of small, isolated conversations that ultimately do not move the needle in terms of social consciousness. Shows that should be much more appreciated just disappear into the sea of salt and slime. The only things you must watch now when they release are the prestige weekly releases that are very few and far apart, and sporting events. It was so much easier and cheaper for Hollywood before they jumped on this terrible new format, but that comes as a surprise to no one. Hollywood does what Hollywood does. The small pool of actual talent has been spread so thin working on things that we will probably never watch, and that has ultimately devalued the medium as a whole. But I do know that there are a lot of proponents of streaming as a model, so instead of just disliking the video, drop me a comment and give me a perspective on streaming and subscriptions, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.